What is happening, guys? My name is Jamie and today it is the top 10 best metal albums of July. So July has been a pretty good month in terms of metal. We've had some pretty good albums and I have really enjoyed 10 albums that I need to share with you guys today. But let's get on with the nitty and gritty. Now, most of these albums are black metal and along with black and death metal, but there's also some albums on this list that's a little bit different. We got some power metal, we got some black metal. So I'm going to go for the honourable mentions. First of all, it's Rumahoy, Party to Party. Such a very enjoyable album. He is an Aussie and he is such a fun fucking album, really is. I love Cowboys of the Sea along with Treasure Gun. Bang Bang! I love that song. And Poop Deck Party is one of the funniest songs you could ever imagine, but it's a bit like Aequiizoiikum as they are a pretty fun metal band, and I just really love the vibe from this album and some really cool songs as well. If you like fun metal, go check out Rumahoy, Time to Party. Next up is Aequiizoiikum and the album Crowned in the Shadows. Now, I love this album and I wanted to put it in my top 10, but there were just better albums. So Aequiizoiikum is definitely going to be in my honourable mentions. And Crowned in the Shadows is a black metal album that sounds very similar to bands like Burzum and even Mayhem. It's definitely got that 90s black metal feel that you come to enjoy. It also has that production 90s feel. And I just love his vocals. It's very visceral and his shrieks are absolutely incredible. But unfortunately, this album didn't make it in my top 10, but it deserves to be in honourable mentions. And finally, we got Ensiferum, Thalassic. Enjoyable album, it really is. Now, I was going to put it in my top 10, but I just feel there are other albums that are better than this album. But you know what? This is a fun album as well, and Ensiferum do it right, but I just feel like that this band is on autopilot. Run Women Victory was a song that I really grew to love, but to be honest, Cold Northland, the last song off the album, is one of the best Ensiferum songs. Really enjoyed this album. Certainly this album will grow on me from time, but at the moment it's sitting on honourable mentions. So let's kick off with the top 10. So coming at number 10 is Static X, Project Regeneration Volume 1. This album is definitely one of the best Static X albums in my opinion. Even though Wayne Static did pass away back in 2014, the band is still tight and cohesive with some really awesome songs like Hello, Worth Dying For. It's really catchy melodic moments. Now Wayne Static's vocals are absolutely fucking unbelievable on this album. Harsh and aggressive at times. Love Accelerate. Really love the catchy chorus along with My Destruction. The worst possible song on this album is Follow, which just sounds like the same repetitive nonsense. But then you got Dead Souls, which is definitely one of the interesting Static X songs along with those cleaner vocals, and I just love the vocal overlay throughout this song. Now Zero's on this album as well, accompanied with Wayne Static's vocals. I did do an album review for this album. I think I gave this about 8 out of 10. I think it deserves to be in the top 10 for this month of how different this album is. This was a very surprising moment for me, so I was really surprised, even though there was a few altercations along the way in the making of this album. I really enjoyed Static X, and that's why it's sitting at number 10. So coming in at number 9 is Bury Tomorrow, Cannibal. Now this is a metalcore album that I was really grown to really enjoy. Bleed From Within was another fantastic metalcore album that didn't make it into my top 10 last month, but after repetitive listens, I think it deserves to get a mention. And now we go to this month, which is Bury Tomorrow, Cannibal. Such an awesome metalcore album. And I love the transitions of those clean vocals and that chorus that don't sound whiny at all. Sounds like a fucking man singing. And then you've got those harsh aggressive vocals throughout the verses. Although it may be some cookie cutter metalcore, it still holds true to that Bury Tomorrow sound, and I love the leading guitars throughout this album. Cannibal is a fantastic song, fantastic metalcore song, maybe a little bit generic at times, but it's still a very catchy fucking song. Really enjoyed Choke as well, and overall this is a really tight and cohesive album, one of the better metalcore albums of the year in my opinion. It's up there with Polaris, it's definitely up there with Bleed From Within, and it's just a fun metalcore album to bang your head along. Over occasional listens of this album throughout July, I started to really enjoy it, especially after you finish night shift and coming back home. You want something a little bit more energetic to liven up your soul, and I always put on this album. And yeah, I grew to really enjoy it. Now, if I had to rate it, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. So coming at number 8 is Judicatior, Let There Be Nothing. This album really took me by surprise. Now, I did hear a few Judicatior albums before this album, and I tell you what, they're a really consistent band. I love the concept of some of these albums. One of the better concept albums of the year. Not as good as Sorcerer album. This band really reminds me of bands such as Blind Guardian. It's got this sort of power metal vibe along with that proggy metal vibe. And what I love is the beginning of this album. Let There Be Light is such a really awesome song along some really nice guitar leads. The drums are absolutely fantastic. The overall production on this album is really good as well. At times I love the symphonic elements, just creating an epic feel. Running around about 60 minutes, you're really going to enjoy this. If you love power metal, proggy, progressive metal, really reminds you of bands such as even Symphony X, such as the song Gloria and Amber Dusk, which has an ominous tone that I really love. Love the chorus, love the lyrics. It's a really good fucking album, so go check it out. So coming in number 7 is the Finnish black metal band Vaki and the album Coalesce, Maan, Omaksi. Wow, this album really took me by surprise. It's definitely one of the best black metal albums of 2020 in July, and I fucking well enjoyed it. I really did. Love the harsh, aggressive vocals, some really nice overlaying synths throughout this album, not to mention the blast beats. The blast beats are absolutely fucking amazing, and how intense this album feels. Interesting songs overall. Love the length of this album as well, and it just puts you in a sense of that atmosphere that you love in black metal. It's such a really enjoyable album. It's like Finland do nothing wrong, just a powerhouse for metal. There must be something in the water in Finland, because everything you hear from Finland is fucking top notch. It really is. But this album is one of the best black metal albums of July, and I fucking well enjoyed it. So coming in at number 6 is another black metal band. It's Khatohoniik Cerviiks. Now this is a German black metal band, I believe. And I tell you what, some of these songs are absolutely brilliant. This is a very atmospheric black metal album that you will definitely need to check out. Now, I'll put all the albums in the description of all the stuff you should check out. A lot of people don't know about this album, and I think this is definitely one of the better albums of July. Fantastic black metal album with some really visceral vocals. The vocals are intense as anything, and I just love how blackened and how death at times it sounds. It's a black and death metal album at times, incorporating the elements of the black metal, creating that atmosphere. Love the guitar tones, really love the drumming throughout this album, and overall, how ambient some of these songs feel. Now, you feel like there's some songs that feel like something out of Burzum, like even the Philosophium era. Love this album. Go check out Khatohoniik Cerviiks. So coming in number 5 is Haken Virus, a very enjoyable album. Didn't expect to enjoy this album. Really awesome album. I did an album review for this, and I also explained to you why it's in my top metal albums of 2020 so far. So there's nothing really I can say about this album which I haven't already said. Prosthetic is a really good song. They have been inspired by bands such as Leprous and even Dream Theater. I love the guitar moments, I love the guitar solos. Messiah Complex, definitely a fantastic song suite. What I would have enjoyed is actually have this suite combine into one song, make it a 17-minute song instead of a 3 to 4 minute. That's one complaint, but the suite is top notch. Although I'm still not a big fan of Only Stars. Of course, I listened to Virus and the previous album. I can understand why they put Only Stars as the last song, since Vector started off pretty slow. It seems logical that Virus ends slow as well. Thumbs up for Haken. Okay, so now let's take a break from the best albums. We now go on to the worst albums of July. Very controversial pick, of course. These are the albums that I didn't really enjoy, and there's only 2 albums this month. We got Defeated Sanity and the album The Sanguinary Impetus. Alright, so this album is not very good in my opinion. The moment I heard this album, I said, oh god, this is terrible. This is like slam death metal, and I don't really enjoy this kind of sound. Don't enjoy his vocals don't enjoy the instrumentals. It's very murky. It's not a very good album in my opinion. I love death metal and I don't like this album. I think it's one of the worst albums of 2020 at the moment, but would it make it into my list? Sure it will. Trivium would be out and this would be in. This takes its place. Okay, so finally, the worst album of July 2020 goes to this 22-minute album that I absolutely hated, and it's Zombie Shark, I Will Destroy You and Everything I've Ever Loved. So this album's bad. It's a pretty bad album. You know what? It's very chaotic. They try to be a neonafric. They try to incorporate the grindcore element, even sounding like Napalm Death, but they do it completely wrong. They do it completely wrong. This is a 22-minute shit piece. It really is. It's not a very good album. It's like a cyber deathcore album at times, incorporating elements of grindcore, and I don't really enjoy this album. I've heard this album twice and I thought this was an absolute shit album by this band. Zombie Shark aren't a very good band in my opinion. I don't really enjoy their stuff. Certainly this is an acquired taste, but if I had to give Zombie Shark a rating, man, a 0.5 out of 10. Moving away from the shit albums of July, we now go on to the best metal albums of July, and coming out number 4 is Noctem Aeternis and the album Landscape of Discord. This is a really fun fucking black metal album, incorporating orchestral elements along with the symphonic feels that really remind me of bands such as The Summoning. And there's another band that reminds me of The Summoning as well, which is Above It. But this album's pretty fun. I love the song Those Who Shall Perish. It's such an enjoyable song along with blast beats, and his vocals on this are absolutely insane. Love the high shrieks, love the chord progression throughout some of these songs. Necromancy is a really fun fucking song as well. This reminds me of something out of the fantasy world. And even Solstice in the Dark is a really awesome long song that you just really can't help but enjoy, and that's why Noctem Aeternis is this high. It's because it's such an enjoyable album, and if you haven't heard this album, I say go ahead and check this out. I love how atmospheric this album is. Paysage de Hiva has a different atmospheric tone. You've got Noctem Aeternis that has a very different atmospheric tone than Paysage de Hiva. It's like all these atmospheric black metal bands have different atmosphere. And that's why I love it. So coming at number 3 is another black metal band called Lune, Wildlands of the North. Now this is an absolutely brilliant album, very atmospheric. It's sort of a war black metal album. They incorporate elements of doom metal as well, especially through songs like Night Wander, which has a very overlaying guitar lead that sounds very similar to even bands such as My Dying Bride, even Paradise Lost as well. So they incorporate elements of that black metal along with that doom metal, and I just really love how slow some of these songs are, but also how visceral in tone the vocals are. Very brilliant vocal performance by this vocalist. So each song is pretty long, like the longest song is Sapphire Sky. What does lack is that some of the songs do sound the samey, but I do love the atmospheric tone that this album provides. Although what's cheesy as well is probably the war moments, the soundtrack with the swords clashing. Sounds a little bit cheesy, but damn, it actually fits on this album. And that's why Lune, Wildlands of the North is sitting at number 3. Okay, so coming at number 2 is no surprise, it's Gaerea, Limbo. This album is absolutely fucking fantastic, incorporating elements of black and death metal along with black metal. Some really awesome moments. Love the song To Aim, which is beautiful, soft at times, but yeah, visceral and deadly in tone. And I love the vocals, love the guitar lead. This is one of my favorite black and death metal albums along with Vaskons. This band Gaerea is something very different, very mysterious, and I love their persona on this album as well. Some really awesome songs. I just really adore this album. I played this album countless times, but of course there's only one album of the month that absolutely blew me away, and it's a Funeral Death Doom album, and I did review this. It's Convocation, Ashes of Coalesce. Oh, yeah, so good, so fucking good. 10 out of 10. It's a just brilliant album. I love it. I love how slow it is, and at times incorporating elements of the Death Doom. My Rise is definitely a Death Doom song. His vocals are absolutely fantastic. I just really love how slow the Absence of God is, but then it builds up to such an atmospheric tone. It's just got everything. It's got atmosphere, it's got dread, it's got bleak moments. It's so damn good. That's why Convocation is easily my #1 album of July. Just such an intense album at times, but yet really calm as well. The slow starts, the build-ups, so damn good, really is. And that's why Convocation is my #1 album of July 2020. So guys, I hope you did enjoy the best albums of July 2020. Comment below your favourite albums of July. Do you agree or disagree with my opinion? And I will see you in the next one.